Hey, good morning, everybody. We are a few minutes behind. Had a hiccup with the whole Zoom piece and dealing with other things. So here we are. We're live. I am going to make sure I can see on my phone that we are live. Make sure my volume on my phone is down so I don't hear myself. Good morning, Susan. I see you. Okay, so this morning, so all of our Canadian peeps who are watching and who may be, good morning, Nicole. I hope you had a great long weekend. It was Victoria Day weekend, so their May long weekend was this past weekend, so they were all off yesterday. And so we'll be playing catch up with them. Obviously, this coming weekend here in the States is our long weekend. So hopefully they are recovering and they had a great long weekend. I know the weather here was beautiful. And so I'm excited to be here. And yeah, so the whole like Zoom thing kind of is catching me off. So I'm like flipping my script, so to speak, in my head. Because anyways, you know how we have to like pivot on the fly, right? So that's what we're doing this morning. We're just kind of pivoting. But thankfully I'm somewhat prepared because I have my cheat sheet and my notes. So we'll be kind of referring to those as I go along. So let's see here. Okay. If you are watching live, good morning, Andrea. We are talking personal branding, unleashing what does that mean for you, and talking about how to create a consistent voice. Thanks, Nicole. My little cheerleader. I love it. Right? How to just define your brand identity. What does that mean? What does it sound like? We're going to talk about your expertise and your USP, your unique selling proposition. And as a small business owner, we are our brand. Now, if we were having a conversation with one of the Fortune 500s that have like the $1 million plus budgets for branding, then it'd be a different conversation, right? Because it's not personal. But you are your brand. You are the front face of your brand. You are the voice of your brand. And so part of what we want to talk about is how do you define what that identity looks and feels like, where you can stay in alignment. Because it's super easy, especially with AI these days, where we can create a brand identity, we can create a voice, but it's not ours. And we can plug it all in and say, this is who our brand is. This is who we want to talk to. This is what it's going to sound like. And then as a small business owner, we're having to create content using something that is not who we are. And all of a sudden, when we start talking about being consistent, when we talk marketing and saying you have to be consistent, you have to be engaging, you start to struggle because now you're having to put on a mask to pretend you're somebody or something that you're not for the sake of your brand. And it doesn't work. So when we are talking about this today, I want you guys to think about, in a past training we talked about when your brand story began. And this is when it comes into play, because this is how your brand personality begins and where it takes root in the foundation of it. So as we walk through, we're going to be defining what your brand identity is. We're going to look at what your expertise is. And then we're going to clarify that USP, that unique sales proposition. And because it all kind of rolls back up to where we're going to start, which is your brand identity. We're going to identify you. So when we are discovering who we are as a brand, we have to just start to where we are. Who are we? Who am I? And so, and we talk about it all the time, right? Like, who, not just who our audience is, but who are we? So, for those that are here this morning, what's the one thing when you do a self-reflection moment, whatever that might look like for you in your daily practice, when you're reflecting on the day before or the current day, if it's in the evening or if it's in the morning, you're kind of reflecting on what you want to be accomplishing today, what are the things that come up? What are the things that are really important to you? Family, faith, community, support, service. What are the things that drive you to kind of get up and go, I'm going to take action. I'm determined. I'm going to move forward. Right. Andrea's like going who we are versus who we need to be. That's a great this and that, right? When we start doing those comparisons. So when you're defining and you're self-reflecting on who your identity is within your brand, what is the role? And it's more than I'm wearing my marketing hat today, I'm wearing, my customer service hat, I'm wearing my sales hat. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's the common theme within you and how you interact on all levels of your business. Because that becomes the core of your identity for your brand. Because that's what's going to shine through in everything you do. That's what's going to shine through. Right? So we talked about brand principles several weeks ago. And with the Women's Business Resource Community, right, we identified and shared with you that the 3 brand principles are community, accessibility, and empowerment. And those are the filters that we put all of our decisions through. When we create a product or start to talk about launching a service, because the principles are our brand statement. It's who we are. And anybody that is interacting with us, they don't just see it on the outside, they see it come through in everything that we're providing. And then the best part is we don't have to struggle when we're creating or when we're commenting or we're engaging, because we are staying authentic and we've been very clear on who and what our brand and what our brand identity is, because it's who we are as individuals. It's what we bring to the table, right? So when you're talking about audience research and you're thinking about what you're reflecting on, who you're speaking to, think about the voice you're using. What kind of voice are you using? And some people say, I use a warm and loving, or I use a friendly mentoring type voice, or I'm a support person. Depending upon your product or service, and depending upon the role you're taking within your business, it might tweak a little, but there will be that continuity of voice. Because that's the authentic voice of your brand, right? So what's your go-to tone when you're speaking with your audience? Sorry. Good thing I have water. Who wants to share? Confident and enthusiastic, I hope. Yeah. Right? So Andrew's saying, like, she's hoping, right? She hopes that she's sounding confident and that you're enthusiastic, right? So you're upbeat, you're positive, solution oriented, forward focused kind of thing, right? So what happens? So since Andrea commented, Andrea, if you're having relief for them from stress and too much to do, yeah. So Andrea, when you're talking to a customer or a potential customer, client, and you're having like kind of an off day, we all have them. How do you know you're still sounding confident and that you're feeling enthusiastic and that they receive that and it comes through in your voice, whether it's written or you're actually speaking it on those off days? Because this is when we start talking about that being authentic, right? Are there certain words that you use? Certain phrases, certain terms? So those are the things that when we're looking at and defining our brand identity, that's what's going to come through. I feed off them. So Andrea says in a conversation, she'll feed off of them, right? Pick up on their energy and kind of mirror back to them. That's great. one, it shows that you're actively listening, and two, that they feel comfortable, right? Because now you're starting to build that trust with them. So Nicole's saying relief for them from stress of too much to do. So how does that come through when you're sharing your brand, whether it be online or in person? How do you allow them to feel that sense of relief through conversation? Are there certain terms you're using? Them, listening to them, yeah. Yeah, active listening is so important when we're building not just our brand, but just, the reputation as well, right? Around that brand is making sure that people feel heard, because that's what we want. We all want to feel heard, right? We don't want to be spoken to, we want to be spoken with. So, and that's part of when you're looking at your brand and you're looking at who you're speaking to. No, but now I know to find some wording. Yeah, right? And this is part of that reflection, right? Like, what am I saying? What am I constantly saying that I know is coming from my heart to the majority of the people that I speak with, whether it be through an engagement comment or through a telephone conversation? There's going to be certain terms that you're saying consistently that just resonates with you and really speaks to who you are. That's part of how you build your brand statement, right? You can identify and dig into your brand principles and how that voice is consistent throughout all that you do, whether you're creating internal documents, you're writing emails, you're engaging on social media, creating new programs for yourself, right? I always tell them I haven't met anyone I couldn't help. Yeah. Right? And sometimes knowing our limits, the way we help people is by referring them to, right? Like, we know if we're not the right solution, knowing that we can refer them out is also being helpful. So yeah, as long as they're committed, absolutely, right? When clients or customers are committed to their own growth, no matter what that looks like, whatever your service is, then you're able to support them. It's when they're not committed, that's when you kind of start to go, how do we do this? Where do we meet in the middle, right? To get them on board. Okay, so audience research. When you know your brand identity, you know your voice, the common terms you use, what does that end up doing as you're connecting with your audiences and you're researching your audience? Because that consistency is building what? For those people that are starting to find you through your content, whether it be article or blogs or social media, reels, videos, trainings. So Andrew's saying referring them to an assignment for a quick win. Yeah, trust. Yeah, you're building trust, right? You're building that sense of authority. And that kind of slides right into showcasing your expertise. When you're building a personal brand, we have to know what we're an expert in. And we can't be an expert in everything. That's the other piece of it too, right? Like, we have to know where we shine and where we're a little dull around the edges, and it's okay, because we are not supposed to know everything, right? And to take on the persona that I do know everything kind of starts to talk against what you've been doing all along, right? When you're building that brand identity and building that trust, right? So expertise. So let me ask you this. If you had to say, what is one thing, so share with us, what is one thing you are really good at? Like, you could talk for 30 minutes about, or it's something that people just come to you, like your friends and family go, oh, I'm going to go and ask Karen because I know she can help me. what's that topic? What does that look like? Who's asking? What are they asking you support with or help with? What's the one thing you know you can stand up and talk about for 30 minutes? And you see that question all the time in different groups, right? Like people ask all the time, what could you talk about for 30 minutes? There's a reason people ask, right? So what's one topic you could talk about? So for me, I can talk about personal wellness. I can talk about business strategies. You can give me a topic about building a small business and I can talk about what that looks like. So Andrew's saying improving financial management. Yeah. So knowing she can talk about financial management, strategies to improve it, solutions to improve it, means what? She's likely an expert in financial management. Without even knowing what her background is regarding her education or her experience, if she can stand up and talk about it for 30 minutes, there's a pretty good chance she's not BSing anybody, right? If you can talk about it for 5 minutes, you could likely add enough fluff in there that you might be able to convince a few people. But if you're talking for 30 minutes, there isn't enough fluff words in the world, right? There is going to be an experience in there. There's going to be an expertise in there. So Nicole, it's about improving productivity. Again, if you can talk about how to help somebody improve their productivity for 30 minutes, right? Yeah, exactly, I know. So, right, then you are an expert in that. No fluff, absolutely. Yeah. So what would be the second thing somebody would come and ask you about? So we're going to remove, for Andrea and Nicole, we're going to remove the financial management. We're going to remove productivity. What would be the next topic that you could begin to, say, talk for 15 or 20 minutes about? So for me, marketing, branding, building social engagement. And anybody else can chime in. So if you're watching the replay and you want to answer these questions, absolutely make sure you comment so we can drop back in. Okay, because when we know our main topics, right? So Susan, help people problem solve. Yep. 3 keys to profitable business. Excellent. Yep. So these pieces are what we start to interject into everything that we're building when we're talking about our brand identity. So as we're coming up with our brand statement, so the tagline, a mission statement, a vision statement, when we're talking about creating these pieces, we want to know this is the main thing that we're going to support you with. And then the secondary thing is going to be this. Right? So for the Women's Business Resource Community, the number one principle is community. Like that is our number one goal, is to create a community, right? The second is to make it accessible. And the reason is because normally financial or availability, time, accessible, right? So we're going to want to make sure when we do things that it's community-based first. It then becomes accessible, because the end result when we do both of those things together, we get empowerment, right? So as you're looking for, and I'll use Andrea as an example, right? So her improving financial management, she can talk about that till the cows come home. And she's also going to give you, interjected into that topic, keys and strategies on how to be profitable. Not just how to manage the financial piece, but how to be profitable, right? Managing your business financially doesn't always mean you're going to be profitable. So she's going to help you with those, right? That's ultimately what she's saying. So, and with Nicole, right, improving productivity, she's going to talk to you about ways and strategies and solutions to be productive. While based on what she had said earlier, is relieving your stress. So she's going to interject what it means to be kind of stress-free when you're working your business. Improve your productivity while you're working your business. So Susan's really great at problem solving. So she's going to talk to you about how to overcome problems of XYZ, right? So with that, how do you showcase? What do you do to showcase your experience, your expertise, your main go-to topic that you can talk about? How does that come across in what you share and what you do? How do people know that that's your experience without having to listen into a 30-minute conversation? We do it by going back to what are the terms we use all the time, the tone we use, what are our offerings, aka products or services, where we meet our potential clients and customers, the information we're willing to share. I don't believe knowledge is meant to be kept. I believe it's meant to be shared, which is one of the reasons I do these live trainings, right? Because knowledge is power, but to share it is powerful. So how do you share and showcase your expertise? What are you doing right now for people to know they can come to you for the solutions you provide? What's happening in your communication, your world of communication, that people can say, oh, I'm going to pick up the phone and call her, or I'm going to email her, or I'm going to go to her website? What are you doing for them to know that you're the solution? So are you creating content on social media? Are you sharing it through videos? Oh, blogs and articles. Yeah, so Andrea just said she just started a blog, Confessions of a Financial Guru. I love it. I love it, Confessions. Yeah. So now when we write articles and blogs, I'm crossing my fingers that my four-legged doorbell isn't about to walk out and start barking. So when we write articles and blogs, how do we get people to read them? What's a strategy behind the article writing and sharing that knowledge? What are you able to do with that? Because blogs and articles are a great way to share your expertise, gain authority. I forgot to turn my notifications off on my phone, so now it's beeping at me. So we can take those articles and blogs and turn them into snippets, tips and tricks, Yeah, so she confesses something with your financial tips, right? So how are you? So now the confession is part of the hook, right? For Andrea. So she's gonna confess something in the article she's written, along with her financial tips. And I'm only going to guess. I can't speak for her. I'm only going to guess that it's likely something she's done in the past and she's learned, or a client has learned, right? And she was able to help them with. So, right, so that becomes what we are able to then take those and share them through creating reels around them, stories, snapshots, static posts, TikToks. Yes. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, good, good. Yay. I was right. So, and we've all been there, right? Like, so she knows when she says confessions, we've all been there one way or another. So it's good. Right? So you're taking this information you're creating and you're sharing it. So you're showcasing your expertise. People want to know, but you're going to share it where? You're going to share it where your audience is. So that's where, when we talked about defining your personal brand, and we touched on knowing your audience and speaking with them, you need to know where they are. And they're not all created equal. So just because we're comfortable, say, for example, on Facebook or Instagram, but your audience is actually on Snapchat or TikTok, where do you got to get comfortable with? Right? To showcase your experience and what you know, you need to go where they are. And so then that brings us to the clarifying of your unique selling proposition. What sets you apart? What is unique about you that you can talk for 30 minutes about a topic? That you're going to create articles, you're going to create content, you're going to share it, but what is unique? What's the one thing that makes you different? Have you identified it yet? Do you know it? Have you kind of done the work where you have to kind of dig in and say, oh, I kind of sound like 50% of my, we want to always want to be collaborating, but ultimately in the end, when it comes to business, there's competition, right? Somebody is doing something we're doing, and how do we set ourselves apart? What makes us different? So as a business coach, my unique selling proposition is my holistic approach. I was a pioneer in the holistic coaching industry, integrating the mind, body, and spirit with every session, right? So craniosacral therapy, Reiki energy work, and the coaching. In 2006, I was spending 99% of my time educating people about what is craniosacral therapy, what is Reiki, and why it matters that we do a combined approach. Where now it's flip-flopped. I only spend about 30% of my time educating people. The importance of integrating all three, right? So that's what sets me apart as an individual. What sets the Village platform we're building apart is the accessibility. Because there's communities all over the place, right? There, you can join not just Facebook groups, but there's other small business communities that people have been building, right? The membership platforms. We're creating one that's accessible, financially successful. Our goal is to remove the financial barrier for people. So that's our unique selling proposition. What's yours? What is so different that people sit up and take notice? Anybody want to take a crack at it? Share? Okay, so while you guys are thinking about that, I kind of want to revisit when we're defining the brand identity for a minute. because it doesn't just stop with what we write and what we share online. It's how we carry ourselves in public. It's how we share our experience. It's how we communicate with other people. It's how we show up in the grocery store, right? So Andrea's like confident and enthusiastic. So when she shows up at the grocery store, she's going to wear that confidence, right? She's going to wear that enthusiasm. Like our personal brand is something that we carry with us all the time, which is why it's personal and why it's part of the foundational keys to building a strong business brand. So, right? So Andrea says her unique selling proposition is I offer to find them money to pay me with a financial review. Excellent. Right? So she's overcoming that obstacle of when people say, I don't have the money to hire you. So she's overcoming that by saying, give me X number of minutes or hours, and together we'll figure out where we can save you money so you can afford me, because ultimately in the end, you cannot not afford to invest in your business and in your own personal growth, right? So Susan says, I'm good at starting something without knowing all the answers, figuring it out as I go, being okay at not being perfect right out of the gate. You and me both, sister. You and me both. Right? So for Susan, right, so she creates these beautiful one-of-a-kind jewelry pieces. So for her, like her branding, her brand identity, and her experience is, we can start to look at her saying, so Susan's working with whoever her client is. It can, a woman looking to make her own piece of jewelry, or having Susan make it for her, or a husband or a spouse or somebody saying, like, I want this piece of jewelry for whoever's going to end up wearing it, right? So for her, it's really about allowing them to be authentic and vulnerable, so she is able to kind of connect with them to make sure it's the right piece of jewelry, right? And Susan and I have talked before during the Biz 101, and what do we identify, right, Susan? So the big pain point for women in jewelry is showing up and wearing something that your neighbor's wearing and going, oh, look, we're wearing the same necklace. Oh, look, we're wearing the same earrings. Right? So the pain point for women or people who wear jewelry is they kind of want to have one of a kind. They don't want to be showing up and having everybody have the exact same piece of jewelry on. Unless, of course, it's a bridal party and then that's done on purpose, right? But you know what I mean? So for Susan, right, not knowing sometimes is one of the gifts. So, I should have turned my phone off. I didn't think I'd be getting this many messages. Let me just turn it off because now it's bugging me. Okay. Right? So that's how, when you start to clarify what is so unique about you, then you can start to kind of rise above the rest and stand out easier. And it will come through in how you share your experience and your expertise. It comes through in your tone and your voice and how you're sharing what you're sharing. But the work starts at knowing what is your piece that is so different, so unique. Hi, Lori. So, questions. What questions do you guys have today that we can kind of dig into and get some answers for you? No questions? That's okay. You can always ask them later. So we talked about defining what your brand identity is, right? Knowing who you're speaking with from your audience perspective. knowing your tone, knowing the verbiage that you like to use that really represents who you are, right? So then you're wanting to showcase your expertise through, again, that language and how you're sharing it, and then clarifying what's super unique. So Andrew's saying how to attract high ticket clients. That's all going to be, that's going to come absolutely right back down to marketing, the language, and knowing exactly where your high ticket clients are. Because when you're talking high ticket clients, are you talking what's the dollar amount you're thinking is a high ticket client? Because everybody will define it differently, right? And depending upon your experience and your history, yeah, so your clients who need help with finances, but the fee is a challenge. So this is where getting clear on who are you really speaking to, that audience, is going to be critical for you, Andrea. Because if you are going after high ticket clients, they're not going to have a problem with the fee. So if what you are attracting are potential clients that say, I can't afford that, then your messaging is off. There's a disconnect between what you're saying and how it's hitting with your client or your potential client. And that doesn't mean you have to lower your fees. It just means you need to keep tweaking what your messaging is sounding like so it's hitting. Okay, so she's saying $1,000 per month, or someone who can pay 3 to 5 at once. Okay, so then their pain point, so somebody who can write a check for $5,000, their pain point is going to be different than somebody who is struggling to write a check for $100 a month. So how are you speaking to that person who has the disposable income, the funds available to write that check for $5,000? And are you using the language that they want to hear? And that's part of that audience research where you might have to go into somebody who's already attracting high ticket clients that you know for sure, right? And there's lots of people out there that will say, oh, I work with high ticket clients. Like, come be one of my high producing clients. They may not already be working with people. So their language still may be off because they're still trying to attract people that still can't write the check. So you might have to do a little digging around who is really successful at getting people to open up their checkbooks for that kind of dollar amount. What are the languages that they're using? What are the terms that they're using? And can you use similar language and still be authentic? Second is, who have you already worked with that has written the $5,000 check that can give you the testimonial? That yes, I invested this amount of money, and yes, this is the results I got. So those would be the two things I would recommend. You kind of, hi, I see you, sweetheart. Yes, I know, I see you too. So, right, so those are the two things you're going to want to be looking at to start to adjust the verbiage and adjust how your messaging is hitting and that it's hitting the right audience. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? I know, you're fine. She wants a little bit of attention, I think. Yeah, so clients pay those amounts, but it's usually over time. Okay, so, which is fine. You just need to get them to put it in writing that they've invested that kind of money with you. So that way you can turn around and use it in testimonials, and you can be using it in your marketing. So it's almost kind of like, getting some case studies, right? So people can see themselves. It's kind of like when realtors stage a home. They stage it so potential buyers, when they come in, they see themselves in the home already. That they're not kind of wading through other people's personal effects, right? They're not walking in and saying, oh, that's a pretty picture of all of their family members, right? They still see it as somebody else's home. They need to see it almost like a blank canvas where they're coming in, but they can see themselves in it. So our marketing messaging, that's what it's similar to. We are creating a canvas for them to learn, but still see themselves within our business. So that way they fall in love with us. You work with them confidentiality. Yes. So there will be individuals that you can ask to say, can you write me a testimonial? And you don't have to put their name. And then you can put at the bottom of your, so let's just use Instagram as an example, right? So you put together a carousel of the testimonial, kind of what that looks like. And then at the bottom of your caption, you put, names have been withheld due to confidentiality, as confidentiality is my number one value, or whatever that looks like, right? Right, exactly. So the anonymity is going to be important, but you can use that caveat at the bottom to say that we're not putting names on purpose. But then you're going to want 2 or 3 of them that would be willing to do like a call where it's like, if somebody's serious and say, well, I don't, can I talk to any of your past clients? Then you're going to want to have 1 or 2 that are going to be willing to talk to them for 5 minutes and just do a 5-minute, yes, I worked with Andrea. It was really helpful. And I was struggling before, even though I was making, this kind of money, I was still not making the right business decisions financially for me. And she got me turned around, and this is what I got out of it, right? So it's okay for it to be anonymous. You can still have them write it where you can take pieces out to use in your marketing or on your website. Right? So that way when they see their words, they're like, oh, she kept her promise. Like she didn't use my name. And you can keep it brief, kind of brief enough, or, kind of like wash it down where people can't discern who it might be. Right? So, helpful? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Awesome. Okay. So then I think we're good. Yes, very helpful. Awesome. I'd love to hear that. Yay. All right. So we talked personal branding, brand identity, showcasing your experience and your expertise, getting clarity on your unique selling proposition. And as you move forward, lean into the group, make sure you're posting questions and asking for feedback on certain things if need be. And yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for showing up, you guys. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad this was helpful. And we will see you guys next weekend. For those that are here in the States, have an amazing long weekend with your family and friends. Yeah, the confidentiality is, right? It just, to kind of go back, it just shows how people can trust you. It actually will lend to be part of your brand identity too, right? So yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great long weekend. Stay offline if you can. Try not to work. Try to enjoy it unless it's absolutely necessary. And, my puppy dog is sitting here looking at me going, please take me out. Yes, I know. I hear you. All right. Thank you. Have a great day. And I appreciate you all.